What would you think if I told you he never really wanted her? Not her presence, not her soul, not her actual human essence with its nuance, its needs, its sacred imperfection. He wanted the idea of her, the ghost of her, the echo of something long lost within himself. And when he reached out to hold her, it wasn't her hand he grasped, it was his own projection, clothed in her softness, shaped by his longing. Carl Jung called it anima addiction, the fixation on the inner feminine archetype a man has never fully integrated. She is not real. She is a psychic imprint, a muse constructed of dreams, desire, and denial. And when a man has not done the work to meet this part of himself consciously, he looks for her in the faces of women, mistaking chemistry for connection, obsession for intimacy, and longing for love. You may have felt it before, the way his eyes studied you like scripture, like you were the answer to some ancient riddle he couldn't quite name. The way he worshipped your presence at first, pulling you into a romance that felt like prophecy. And then the switch, the withdrawal, the disappearance. You didn't change. His illusion did, because he wasn't in love with you. He was in love with the mirror you became. The feminine, as Jung understood it, is not a woman. It is the archetypal force of intuition, emotion, mystery, creation, chaos, and surrender. When a man is cut off from this aspect within himself, he begins to hunger, not for connection, but for a woman to carry it for him. She becomes the container for all he has exiled: softness, sensitivity, depth. But when she eventually reveals herself as fully human, flawed, complex, boundaried, the fantasy begins to collapse. He wanted her shadow, not her body. The shadow doesn't need time, doesn't ask for accountability, doesn't require real intimacy. The shadow version of her is pliable, responsive, devotional. The woman who never turns away, never asks for space, never reflects his brokenness. But the real woman, she triggers him because she sees him, not the curated self, not the posture, the man beneath. And that visibility terrifies him, not because he lacks feeling, but because he has spent his entire life repressing it. So when he pulls away, it's not because she failed. It's because she succeeded in reflecting back to him the parts of his soul he has not yet claimed. This is the addiction, not to her love, but to the high of being seen without the cost of being known. He seeks the spark, but flees the fire. He wants devotion without depth, vulnerability without risk. And once the real begins to surface, he vanishes, sometimes physically, more often emotionally. You, the woman, are left breathless, not because he took something from you, but because he handed you a crown and then called you too much when you wore it. He adored your mystery until you asked to be met in truth. He worshipped your glow until it lit up his shadows. And now you sit in the afterglow of his silence, wondering if you imagined the connection. You didn't, but he did. He imagined you as the cure for his hunger. And when you revealed yourself as a living, breathing soul, not a symbol, he recoiled. Because the anima, when unclaimed within, demands perfection from without. And no woman can carry that projection forever. Understand this. When he chased your shadow, it was never about your worth. It was about his wounds. It was about the feminine inside him, screaming to be seen, to be healed, to be integrated, and him mistaking you for that voice. He cannot love you as long as he fears the parts of himself that you reflect. But you're not here to be a mirror for a man who won't open his eyes. You are not here to perform wholeness so he can avoid his own fragmentation. You're not his anima. You are a woman, and you deserve a man who sees you, not the shadow he projects in your name. He will think of you in the quiet, not because he misses your voice, but because the silence you left behind speaks louder than the fantasy he tried to replace you with. The anima, when she is unmet within a man, becomes a ghost he hunts in the form of flesh. And no matter how many bodies he moves through, how many lips he kisses or beds he warms, there will be something missing, something elusive. Because the hunger is not carnal. It is archetypal, and it cannot be filled by possession, only by integration. He doesn't know this, not yet. He believes he's searching for you, the magnetic woman, the one who stirred something holy in his chest, the one who left him breathless with your knowing gaze, your quiet power, your deep presence. But he's not chasing you. He's chasing the part of himself you awakened. That's why he returns in strange ways. Not always with words. Sometimes just energy. A sudden follow. A subtle reaction. A message left unsent. A name that appears in your feed as if summoned by thought. He doesn't know why he's drawn to you. Why he can't forget the way you made him feel. Why every other connection falls a little flatter, feels a little thinner, like paper against silk. But you know, because you weren't performing. You were embodying. You weren't offering him escape. You were offering him a mirror. And when he looked into your eyes for a moment, he saw something he couldn't name, the possibility of wholeness, the invitation to feel, to soften, to become. But becoming is terrifying for the man ruled by avoidance. The man whose masculinity has been built on resistance to emotion, on domination rather than depth. He is taught to conquer, not connect, to pursue, not participate, to want but never surrender. And so, the anima becomes a dream, a high, a rush of poetry and worship that never lands in reality. He romanticizes women who don't challenge him, elevates the ones who remain an illusion. But the moment she becomes real, when she bleeds, breaks, cries, or asks for reciprocity, he retreats. Because to meet her there would mean meeting himself. Naked, unarmored, raw. You were too real for that. Too deep, too present. Not because you demanded anything, but because you felt everything. And he could sense it. That ancient femininity that lives in your silence. That knowing that doesn't ask, doesn't push, but simply sees. He wanted that. Until he felt it. Until it shook something loose in him he wasn't prepared to hold. So he called you intense. Said it was too fast, too soon, too much. But it wasn't you who was too much. It was the weight of his own unlived emotions that became unbearable in your presence. You were simply the container, the vessel, the invitation. And now, you must understand, his absence is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of his refusal to enter the threshold you opened. The door was never locked, but walking through it would have required death, the death of ego, of performance, of illusion. Jung knew this death well. He called it individuation, the sacred unraveling of the false self, so the true self can be born. But not every man is ready to die like that. Not every man is ready to love like that. And that is not your burden, because you are not here to be consumed by his longing. You are not here to be his doorway if you will not walk. You are not here to be the muse he leaves behind in the name of comfort. You are the woman who awakens men, not the one who waits for them to awaken. You are the fire, not the flame he touches and runs from. You are the reality beyond the dream. And when he returns, and he will, searching not for your body, but the echo of the part of himself he abandoned in your presence, you must remember, you were never his missing piece. You were his mirror. There's a sacred violence in being someone's mirror before they are ready to see. Because when you reflect the anima, the inner feminine he has banished from his consciousness, he doesn't see you. He sees the wound, the ache, the fracture, the longing for warmth he never learned to hold without burning. And so, he confuses you for pain. He loves your softness until it unsettles him. He adores your depth until it demands his own. He traces the lines of your patience and tenderness until he realizes they are not a performance. They are your truth. And truth terrifies a man still living in fragments. Because to fully love a woman who has embodied her feminine essence, one who has done her shadow work, who bleeds light and demands no rescue, is to stand fully naked in his own soul. And for the uninitiated masculine, that is unbearable. So he leaves, not with clarity, not with closure, but with confusion and silence. Because how does he explain the feeling of losing something he never claimed? How does he name a grief he doesn't yet understand? He cannot say, I ran because your presence made me feel everything I've tried to numb. He cannot confess, you touched the sacred in me and I wasn't ready to become sacred too. So he vanishes. Or worse, he minimizes. He may call it chemistry lost. He may rationalize it as incompatibility. But beneath every reason is the same tremble. You were not his fantasy, you were his initiation. And that requires a death he is not ready to die. Because the Anima is not passive. She is not just gentle. She is not the muse painted in pale watercolors. She is storm and stillness, chaos and grace. She is Kali, Persephone, Aphrodite, and the unspoken whisper of Gaia in the bones of the earth. She births, destroys, reveals, and transforms. When you walk into a man's life embodying her, he doesn't just feel seen, he feels undone. And if he has not met his own feminine, he will label you dangerous. Because in truth, you are. You are dangerous to everything false, to everything performative, to everything that was never love, only control. He chased your shadow because it was safe, because a shadow can't challenge him. A shadow doesn't require presence. A shadow doesn't bleed, doesn't cry, doesn't ask to be held when she's tired. A shadow doesn't say no, but you did. You said no with your boundaries, with your stillness, with your refusal to beg for half love. You said no with your detachment, your grace, your quiet exits. And that no was holy, because in it, you weren't rejecting him, you were rejecting the projection. You were refusing to play the role of goddess sacrifice in his unconscious theater. You were saying, I am not here to carry what you won't claim. And that is where your freedom begins. Because your power is not in being longed for. Your power is in not needing to be. Your power is in being fully woman, not symbol, not dream, not myth. Your power is in staying whole when he cannot hold the mirror. You're not a phase in his story. You are the pause he will remember between illusions. You are the voice he will hear when he's ready to awaken. And if he never is, that too is sacred, because your path was never meant to circle his fear. Your path is upward, inward, beyond the maze of his projections. You are not waiting to be chased. You are not seeking to be claimed. You are choosing yourself again and again, even when it's lonely, even when the echo of his silence lingers like a bruise. And one day, he will realize it was never your body he craved. It was the part of himself he saw in your eyes and didn't have the courage to meet. He will try to recreate you in others. He'll seek out the soft voice, the open heart, the gentle gaze. But there will always be something missing, something he cannot name, only feel. A phantom truth he let slip through his fingers. Not because she asked for too much, but because he gave too little. And the tragedy is this. He won't realize he was chasing his own soul until he's standing in front of another woman who gives him everything, except awakening. She might adore him. She might even need him, but she will not mirror him. She will not shake the foundation of his identity. She will not hold up that raw, glinting reflection that whispers, you could be more. You see, when a man is addicted to the Anima, he confuses longing with love. He mistakes the ache for connection. He lives on the edges of intimacy, addicted to the high of pursuit, but terrified of the stillness that real love demands. Because real love isn't a high, it's a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. That's why he felt safe when you were distant, mysterious, untouchable. As long as you remained a symbol, he could remain the seeker. But the moment you stepped out of the fog, fully embodied, grounded in your knowing, the illusion cracked. He saw that you were not an escape. You were a threshold, and he wasn't ready to cross it. So now, he returns to the shadows, to the fantasy, to the women who flatter but don't challenge, who touch his skin but not his soul, who praise his surface and leave his depth unbothered. But deep down, something in him remembers. Not the conversations, not the chemistry, not even the moments of tenderness. He remembers the weight of your presence, the terrifying calm of being seen, the unbearable beauty of a woman who does not seek permission to shine. He remembers how his voice sounded in your presence, more real, more vulnerable, less performative. He remembers the way you didn't react when he tried to provoke, when he tested your softness, when he played small games hoping you'd shrink with him. But you didn't. You met him with silence, with stillness, with that devastatingly feminine gaze that says, I see you, and I will not chase you into your own darkness. And that is what haunts him. Not that you needed him, but that you never did. Because when a man is bound to the unintegrated anima, he seeks to be needed. He finds safety in being adored, not in being known. He yearns to be worshipped, not witnessed. But you were not there to worship. You were there to witness. And when he turned away, you let him. Because you knew that chasing a man through his own confusion would only lead you into your own abandonment. You didn't leave because he failed to love you. You left because he refused to love himself in your presence. And no matter how many versions of you he tries to conjure, to seduce, to keep, none will carry your frequency. Because your essence was not the result of strategy or seduction. It was forged in fire. It was the scent of a woman who has died to herself and returned whole. A woman who knows her rage, her softness, her worth. You weren't asking for perfection. You were asking for presence. You weren't demanding devotion. You were offering reverence. And he wasn't ready, because reverence requires surrender. Not of power, but of ego, of illusion, of everything he's used to protect the part of him you made feel real. But that was never yours to fix. You are not his unfinished work. You are not the scaffolding for his selfhood. You are the muse that walked away. And the memory of your absence will outlive every fantasy he once mistook for love. And now, as time stretches forward like an unanswered question, he begins to feel it. Not the loss of a woman, but the loss of a moment. The moment he could have become. The moment he was invited to meet himself through the eyes of someone who saw him. Not as he pretended to be, but as he was always meant to be. Because that's what you did. You offered him a reflection and a path. A path not to you, but through you, into wholeness, into feeling, into truth. But he mistook the reflection for the prize. He tried to possess the mirror rather than walk through it. And so he is left with fragments of you, of himself, of something sacred he dare not claim. He'll catch glimpses of you in strangers, in the soft tone of a passing voice, in the scent of someone's perfume caught on the wind, in the way a song swells at the exact moment he's thinking of you. And each time, it will pierce him, not because he misses you, but because he knows, deep down, that you were never meant to stay. You were the question, and he answered it with fear. But you didn't stay frozen. You didn't collapse into waiting. You did the most dangerous, most holy thing a woman can do in a world that teaches her to earn love with her suffering. You left. Not to punish, not to prove anything. You left because your presence was no longer met. You left because the sacred cannot dwell where it is feared. You left because being a mirror for a man unwilling to look is not love. It is self-abandonment. And so you rose, not into bitterness, but into clarity. And that clarity, that soft and sovereign knowing, is what will make you unforgettable. Not for how you made him feel, but for what you refused to carry. You refused to mother his pain. You refused to be a placeholder for his healing. You refused to contort yourself into a fantasy that cost you your reality. And now, you walk as you were always meant to, not above love, but beyond illusion. Beyond the need to be desired by those who cannot hold you. Beyond the ache of being almost met. You no longer romanticize men who only know how to chase what they fear. You no longer confuse being needed with being seen. You no longer wait for the one who turned away from the mirror. Because you know this now. The one who chases your shadow does not deserve your body. The one who worships your essence but fears your truth is not ready. The one who flees your presence is not rejecting you. He is rejecting himself. And that rejection is not yours to redeem. You are the woman who reflects, who invites, who awakens. But you're not the woman who stays when the door closes. Because you understand what Jung taught so long ago, that love without integration is projection. And projection is not intimacy. It is escape. And you, beloved, are not here to be an escape. You are here to be a home. And the man who is ready for that will not chase your shadow. He will stand in your light, and he will not run. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.